So, Kaylee, did you find this movie totally killer?
I totally did.
Totally Killer is a brand new 2023 Amazon Prime original comedy horror. Definitely comedy first.
Yes.
This would be in the vein of something along the lines of a Final Girls or a Happy Death Day. So
Yeah.
if those movies put you off, then this one ain't going to do nothing for you. If you like those style of movies, this is going to be a big win for you because this movie is fun as hell and really funny.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I was super into this movie. I think that the humor worked really well for me.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how, it's just like you said, if you're not into those other style of movies, you won't like this. But I thought everything was really good. I liked the story. I thought it was really compelling. I think Kiernan's character, Jamie, is very relatable and really cool, and I loved her in this. And all of the side characters too. I thought that they were all really entertaining and memorable, which is what you want in a slasher film.
Yeah. This stars Kiernan Shipka. She's come a long way from little Sally Draper in Mad Men. I watched that show when it aired, and she was a kid in that show, so it's weird to see her as like a grown adult.
Yeah.
And it has Olivia Holt, which I know. Actually, a few of the people in this were people that I knew from my kids' shows.
Yeah.
She was in a show called Kickin' It, and then Girl versus Monster or whatever. I used to have to listen to her music all the time. Not that I disliked her; it was my kids' music.
Kid music.
I just, and then Charlie Gillespie I know from Julie and the Phantoms because my kids were obsessed with that show. So it was interesting to see these random faces from my kids' movies. Which Milo Manheim from Zombies is going to be in Thanksgiving. So this just keeps happening now where all my kids' actors are showing up
into adult films
into adult
now.
films.
Yeah.
Okay, so the director of this movie, this is her second film, and she had done the movie Always Be My Maybe, which got a lot of attention when it came out. It was really well received. A lot of people remember it for that really funny scene with Keanu Reeves. But this is about a girl who lives in, where does she live? Forget what that.
Oh, what area?
It doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
Okay, I was just gonna say she lives in the modern era.
Yeah, in 2023.
And there's these killings that had happened 35 years ago. The Sweet 16 murders. And something happens, and of course she gets access to a time machine because we all do.
Why not?
Why not? And she goes back and tries to change the events, of course, very Back to the Future, but with a serial killer.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the horror goes, it's just very standard fare. You're not really watching this for the horror as much. There are the tropes there that are set up for fun. And I don't dislike the horror exactly, but it's all played for gags.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this movie that's ever taken seriously. It is very likened to the things, that I had already mentioned. So, but I really did find myself laughing out loud quite a bit because where this film really landed for me is with someone from 2023 trying to go back to 1987.
Yeah.
And they are trying to word police and, be a social justice warrior in a time where no one would ever listen to you and things are so much crazier. This is you try to talk to, girls her age now about life in that time, and they just can't for the life of them fathom how it was like the wild west with how we talked and the way we did things. And it is funny to see because I was a kid in the 80s and there's just so many times where she goes to say something and I'm just like, oh my god, yeah, you would be offended every second of every day if you lived in the 80s, a kid now.
I liked that so much too, and I really enjoyed seeing because it's kind of like how far we've come too.
Yeah.
Like it's played for laughs, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my god, like the '80s were like you said, like the wild wild west.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And people had none of the like social and cultural awareness that we do now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get that there can be extremes of that, of course, but obviously there's so much that it's beneficial to have like that kind of awareness. And it's just, I don't know, it was really funny seeing her interact with people back in the '80s and just seeing their reactions to her.
I mean, I think everything has its pros and its cons, right? Like, people weren't so sensitive, and
Hmm.
I loved that, right? I think people are way too up their ass these days with this like word policing and whatnot. But there's also people who have grown and learned a lot in this time, and people aren't as horrible to each other in
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
They're just way more awful to each other online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the
So
internet
they
is a whole
basically
nother
just
thing.
condensed all of their hatred and all of their racism and all of their sexism and everything, and they just saved it for online banter.
Yeah.
But in the '80s, I forget what movie it was that I remember. There was a movie I watched not within the last couple of years where someone was like in modern times from that time, and someone was like shit talking somebody, and the guy in the movie was like, "This person doesn't have the guts to say it to their face. I hate that." It made me laugh so hard because it's so true. Like if you were in my generation, like if you wanted to say something, if you wanted to be a dick, you
Yeah.
had to say it to someone's face,
Sure.
which is
Yeah.
so different.
But even besides like the social stuff, there's also a lot of like safety precautions and whatnot that are highlighted in this that I found
Sure.
really funny. And like
The
in some
smoking
ways,
stuff
oh
was
my god,
really
the
funny.
smoking stuff, like seeing an '80s mom that's like hotboxing her kids with like a cigarette, like it's so funny. But that and even like some stuff with like the police department and like
Oh
how
yeah,
different like we are, how different we are now and like how things operate. So
yeah,
that was really fun. I think that this is a really successful like time travel film, like because that's what, especially in something like this, like that's what you want. You want to see the differences like highlighted,
yeah,
either whether it's a comedic way or a serious way or whatever. Like that's one of the fun things about like comparing different eras. And in this, it's also really kind of sweet because there's obviously still like crossover. Like there's things that teenagers do like in the '80s that they still do now.
of
That
course.
they've always done.
Yeah,
So I found all that to be really, really fun and entertaining. And, some of the time travel stuff is like kind of confusing at the end, but not super confusing. It's only confusing in
it's just
a like
yeah,
every time travel story, like always kind of has that element to it. But
yeah.
I think everything's tied together well enough that I was still satisfied with the ending.
Sure,
So,
yeah. I mean, the time paradox,
yeah.
question is always going to linger in movies like this, of course. Um, but I did appreciate that the movie took some turns, especially in the end, that I wasn't expecting, because
Mm-hmm.
you expect everything to just wrap up neatly, and she's gonna perfectly save the day in all these right ways. And that is not how this movie goes. And I
No.
was very appreciative of that. I thought the
Yeah.
movie was funny first and foremost. And then as like a horror, who done it kind of thing that they have, because you don't know who the killer is. I thought all of that was handled well for this type of film.
Mm-hmm.
So a very entertaining watch. But if you're someone who's just like, I don't like horror comedies, or I don't like teenage,
Yeah.
self-aware comedies and stuff like that, then this ain't gonna be for you.
Yeah.
But man, this is a big win for me.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoyed the hell out of it, and very much looking forward to everyone else's thoughts.
Yeah.
So that's it.
That's it.
All right.
Bye.